So how would you go about solving it?
To reiterate, out of all of those streams of revenue that the universities have, I guess real quick as an aside, they also sell like pharmaceutical intellectual property to the pharmaceutical industries if you are a kind of research type school. But anyway.
Yeah, well, they do have, a follow up on that, they do get more grant money depending on how much you actually, like, how much research you do and how, whether it gets accepted. And then tenure is based on that as well. So, like, professors have to, like, constantly do research in order to get, additional funding or extra money. But, okay.
So out of all these streams of revenue, obviously the most problematic, in my view, is the government subsidized tuition. It's like,
right, I agree.
It's like it used to be, you get the boomers who are like, I don't know what the problem is. I, worked a summer job 2 years and paid off my whole tuition. Like, you lazy millennials not being able to pay off. It's like, well, because it's 300 times as expensive
right. And
now,
you're making 20% more. Well, it's like 300% higher.
Right. So we need to abolish the government subsidized loans. If you're going to loan tuition to students, you have to make sure, that their parents are good for it. There has to be some risk involved with, like, I'm not going to sign up for an arbitrary number that is the first financial transaction. I was a child yesterday. I turned 18, graduated high school. Now I'm going to make like one of the biggest financial decisions of my life before ever interacting with the real economy. It's so stupid. We just need to abolish government subsidized bank loans for school. And I'm sorry that, like, I don't know how these schools are going to maintain their state-of-the-art facilities, but they kind of were disgusting about, enslaving all of these swaths of pupils anyway, so they can deal with it.
I agree with that on principle, but what I think they should do is like what the military does. Like, if the military, in order to better themselves, needs people in a particular position, they give you a bonus for signing up for that position.
Sure.
So I think loans should be available for things that our country needs, basically.
Okay.
Whereas, like, okay, if you're going to be a history major or an art history major, maybe not so much. But if we need more computer science type people, especially in particular fields, maybe your emphasis, maybe even it's just on an emphasis as well, like your AI type of thing or whatever. Say, okay, we're projecting this we're going to need 20,000 jobs, and instead of getting them from other countries, which we're doing right now with the visa program, before we do then we offer these loans out to Americans. And if we don't get enough there, then we can move on to the visa program. Temporarily, will that increase,
tuition for those fields that are undesirable in the first place?
It'll increase.
Because that would be the whole point
overall.
Is you want demand in these fields. So that's why you're incentivizing
It'll
them.
increase it, but it should also incentivize paying more in the field. So it would still increase, the tuition, but not by as much, because you're only doing it for particular fields that the country needs, maybe a handful. So then, rather than everybody. So you'd have everybody else paying a little bit more for the people that are going into the things that the country
need as a
actually
country.
Need. Yeah. So I can see that as a compromise that is probably good for the country. I don't know why our country doesn't do that in the first place. I guess it's more of a freedom thing, individuality thing to not have that, but at the same time that works good for the military. But at the same time, then the military 10 years down the line, it's like we've got too many of these people because we miscalculated or whatever. But we're already doing that right now, where we've got like 200 times more people in certain,
history professors than will ever be a history professor.
Yeah, you might get a position in 500 years.
Good luck.
The amount we got it.
Please
and
apply
you have to be the top. Right. It's just ridiculous. That way you're at least only off like 10, 20 years, whatever the cycle is, when they can reevaluate, rather than forever you being screwed and having a degree and nothing you can do.
Yeah.
Having to pay off working a waitress job or a waiter job.
Certainly what we shouldn't have is what we have now, where anyone for any major can get a government guaranteed subsidized loan for no cap on how much you can borrow.
Yeah, the cap is
so
ridiculous.
Insane.
Oh, that's another thing you do. Instead of doing that, you could like raise.
You can only borrow $10,000.
You could have a cap, yeah, and then
watch the tuition everywhere across the country just be limited to $10,000.
And then you could raise the cap possibly for certain things you need more. That's another way to do it.
Yeah, you could see that for doctors because their schooling is so much longer, but they get paid so well after.
Do they even get paid for being a fellow for 4 years? I think that's like stamp pay.
What, an intern or resident?
The resident, yeah.
They do, but it's not well.
Right.
It's like 40 to 50 maybe. I don't know. I'm not a resident. I'm not a doctor. But yeah, that is the biggest problem with our education, at least financially, is the government subsidized loans.
Okay, that's reducing the price at a college level. What about the huge problem of our grades right now, our standards in math and reading? I think it was something like some huge number of kids in inner city have extremely low reading scores and writing scores and math scores for that reason.
I think there was I don't know how it started, but there seemed to be kind of a hostility towards meritocracy that happened. And I think the schools had their incentive in that we want as many pupils as possible, and it would be great if we didn't have to worry about performance either. And so, yeah, keep butts in seats, keep collecting either tax money for truancy, because that's what a lot of the inner city schools are funded off of, is truancy, is a kid even showing up.
Right, but if your school's crap, what's the point of even going
there? And so there's that issue. There's the teachers unions where it's like there's a, what is it, tenure. It's like people are like, we need to protect our teachers, like they're such important, touchstones of society. And it's like, okay, but that's so many other professions, and they can get fired or they can like fail to compete. Why can't teachers? And so you get the results that you get because there's no mechanism for like, this teacher's a loser, they're not teaching anything, they're borderline abusive, get them out of there, get someone else who deserves that position, and maybe pay them more competitively.
Some of them go like retirement, and they change school districts and then work their way up to a double retirement type.
Yeah, I get like double pension. Ew.
See, my whole family pretty much has been, well, my separated family, not my direct family, but like cousins, aunts, uncles, they're all been teachers, every single one of them. And well, at least on one side, I think both sides. Some are professors on the other side. But they're really good at what they do, and they don't make probably enough pay. But the thing is that you don't get, like, people that care about their kids or whatever, you talk to them, they've got genuine caring, and they really do like critical thinking and encourage their kids, whatever. But the problem is that they see all teachers that way. They see all teachers as the way they are, and that is not the case in my experience, at least.
Sure. Well, and a lot of teachers do lament that they want to teach their kids in a better way, but so much of the teaching is, so much of the curriculum, so much of the way you teach is dictated by the Department of Education and that Common Core type model, which, I don't know, that probably, I think it's right that has degraded performance, and the idea of like no kid left behind, we're going to slow down if not everyone understands this lesson. I mean, that alone is going to... Is
Common Core only like math and STEM type stuff, or is that...
I don't know. The most ridiculous part of it, the part that everyone memes about online, is the math. It's like it teaches you the math, like multiplication tables, in this incredibly roundabout 10-step way where it's like, cross division or multiplication has 2 steps to it. Why are you adding these 7 steps? And it's like, you have to draw this rectangle over here, and now you have to cross this guy out, and then you have to like recategorize it to this table. It's like, I don't know. It was math. It was a math process set up by bureaucrats.
Long form math. I don't mind that. Probably.
I don't know. Maybe we need to review some Common Core
Yeah, that's, I think,
math videos where it's like, what are you even doing here?
Well, because a lot of those things, if you teach it to, like, if you use the tens, the hundreds, or whatever, you can actually do that stuff, like, in your head by, like, reductions, you know, and they don't teach any of that.
They don't teach that because they want to make sure the lowest common denominator student, the slowest student, can also grasp it. But it's like, okay, well, you're convoluting the process to make sure it's easier to understand. You're adding 8 unnecessary steps.
They should just be separated, and they should be like specialist schools. I think, like,
that wouldn't be Common Core, and that probably points to why. That's probably a big part of why test scores have been on the decline.
Yeah,
but
well, reading straight across the board, as long as you're inner city. I think the voucher program, though, to go to other schools and whatnot, that's a good thing. That should help out, but at the same time, it's hard. I don't know, like, if the busing is available, or if then, like, do you have to?
Oh, true.
There's, like, all sorts of things that I'm not familiar with. That I think there's probably bars to difficulty that aren't considered in that whole program.
That's
I think
true.
We should increase it if we really want, you know, an education equity.
Well, you might have to decouple the transportation system from the schools. Then it's like it's not part of the school system that there's these buses busing kids. Maybe there's other services that are, you know, addressed some other way. I don't know. An Uber system.
Food deserts too. Getting back on food again.
Right.
I mean, there could be similar with education where, I mean, you know, we live close to a city. There's no food deserts in the suburbs. They're all, like, in the inner city, basically, if you want to get anything. I'm wondering if it could be the same with, like, but who'd want to go there and work there unless they get extra pay, because the danger factor does go up.
Yeah.
I mean, we both worked in the inner city for a few years, at least. Me a little bit longer with that one job than you. And I mean, people get mugged on the way to work in the morning, or they get carjacked, right? And it's like, I mean,
but we're keeping those areas concentrated now. There used to be, or I mean, as far as cities go, cities kind of rejuvenate themselves all the time. There's kind of like the yuppie kind of, you know, the cycle of, like, a place gets shitty, the real estate gets cheap, artists move in, they make it interesting, the yuppies come in, and then they kind of corporatize everything, and it gets boring and overexpensive, and then crashes to, like,
well, if they're allowed to again. And they aren't, like, specifically drawn out by racial lines, unintentionally, like Milwaukee.
Right. But I think that, again, the voucher system would help to delocalize a lot of that segregation.
North Milwaukee is terrible. I think you're talking about, I think it's where you lived previously, like Southeast Milwaukee. That used to be different. And that wasn't drawn in racial lines, and people can come in there. I think that was real popular for a few years, though. Mm-hmm. Where was that? That where you lived? Or I shouldn't probably share that.
Yeah, that's fine. But
yeah.
So I don't know, what are we talking about, funding right now, or what were we talking about?
Like, yeah, local funding as far as, like, bars restrictions. Like, if North Milwaukee, if they pay, they've got really low housing taxes or whatever. But if they were to pay locally then their city, I don't know which high school that would be. Rufus King, no, it wouldn't.
Well, related to this bond fraud, they might not have a choice soon, because Mitch Wexler is trying to bring this property taxes to the Supreme Court, challenge the constitutionality of property taxes, because it's unrealized gains. And so the 16th Amendment says that you can, he has an argument for why it's unconstitutional on the basis of several amendments, but one of the main ones is the 16th says you can fund income, or you can tax income. And it's like, what income? I didn't sell the house. I didn't get any money in. So why are you taxing me just because my house theoretically appreciated in value? And why are you not collecting that tax then fine when I sell the house and get the income?
Yeah. That makes sense.
So
I think they'll win on that.
They're using it as a basis for all this bond fraud.
They'll lose, I think, if they want it to be they don't pay anything. But I think if they swap it to like when they sell the house. Because did you know like no one actually owns property in the U.S.?
Yeah,
it's like
if you default on your taxes, if you don't pay your taxes, so the best you can do is pay off your mortgage and rent the property.
The government owns all the land, and if you buy land or a house, the government's actually loaning that out to you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's crazy.
When did that start?
Forever. That's the way it's been since the beginning. So that's why like people can just like get kicked off their land to like build wow,
so it was like kind of like a mercantile system, and you could see like the federal government
I don't know
incentivizing people with the pioneers and like we're distributing this lot to you. And
in practice I don't know how that works or if that actually is longer in practice. Sure. So I'll have to look at that up because I saw that and I was just like, what? And it's like, well, that's why the governments can do like pretty much they can tell you whatever the heck they do because otherwise that's your own property. It
makes sense with like the title companies and everything. It's like you have like these very definitive lines of your property, and it's like that's got to be maintained by a central system. And so it's like, yeah, okay, interesting.
Yeah, it's in the land use, get into land use and stuff like that. So I'm wondering, well, education.
Yeah, that's for another. Anyway, so I don't know. I think a lot of these problems are just naturally going to fall away, ironically, through the Udemy model. And these just people have access to education on a much more dynamic and agile way. They can go at their own pace. They can choose what they're learning. Part of what was so stupid about my college degree is like I had to take these classes, and I really wanted to take a psychology class because I was naturally interested in it. And it's like, nope, you have to take a 5th semester of chemistry for your degree in computer programming, where I guarantee I will never, ever, ever, ever touch anything involved with chemistry.
Oh, that is to do in your school, though. That's not.
Either way, it's a stupid model. Or that was a dumb aspect of like the standard.
Wisconsin?
Yeah, the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
You could have taken any science.
For my double major, I had to. This was the way that I could minimize the classes.
What was your other?
Computer science and computer engineering.
Okay, was it computer engineering that had you take chemistry?
I mean, I guess there's some chemicals.
That makes sense,
but
yeah.
5 semesters, like why am I OChem? Why am I taking organic chemistry as a
just to know the relationship
engineer?
Between electricity and
stupid.
Different chemicals and whatnot, different chemical composition.
Don't defend them.
No, I don't think it makes sense, but
anyway, I do think the technology is advancing in a way where, and there is this clearly promising model of like take classes online at your own pace, and you can take them one class at a time as a ride-on, and maybe you get certificates, and it's more about can you actually do the skill.
Especially with AI integration, it's going to be so much easier online, I think, than in the classroom actually like integrating that.
The big miss there, the big con that you don't get, you're losing that you had in school is the social interactions and social development skills. And we need to explore mentorship. We need to challenge, I think, you were born in this grade, these are the people you interact with your whole way through school, everyone's sitting facing the same direction, graded on what's regurgitated by the teacher. There's just so many ways that it's overly structured in ways that like don't suit our current world, and we need more variety, more experimentation. And
true.
That's all I've got to say on the matter.
Let me think. Any follow up here? We covered subsidized loans, possibly fixing those. Possibly moving on with the coupons or vouchers to go to other schools. What about Western European countries that provide free schooling basically on a state. What do you think about them as far as like, say maybe like a Finland or a Sweden or something like that?
Well, they're kind of on the same scale as like a state, a U.S. state. So and their demographics are a lot more homogenized, not just racially but class-wise. You know, there's a lot less. What do they call it? Wealth distribution or lack thereof.
Less disparity between classes.
Right. So I think it's easier when it's monoculture, when it's, you know, not as variant as far as the wealth of people. They're already social in a lot of ways that it's hard to compare. They're like they're not indebted. You know, they have this massive surplus with oil or.
That's my point to you with healthcare, though. It's like each state is like its own country practically. So it's like the costs in the U.S. are going to vary widely. They already do vary widely, but I think education would be the same.
I would want everything to kind of go to the state so that they can experiment more. If they are costlier, why are you dragging the rest of the country down? Why is my home insurance expensive because people choose to live in Florida where they have to rebuild every 2 years? It's like, stop moving to Florida. Like, shoulder your own insurance or choose not to be insured as a state. But, like, why is that affecting my insurance here?
Because we're basically subsidizing Florida with all our insurance. And then you got...
They're stupid mistakes to keep building on limestone.
I think there are some negotiations which might have to be made, would be more difficult at the state level. Let's say importing drugs, things like that. Or getting drugs federally tested, which we do overly stringent, and we always, with a focus on our big pharma, because I think things like those would be difficult. But we don't do a good job now, so yeah, might as well return it to the states because our education system is not doing well right now. Everybody's got a job, though.
Please don't attack me, internet or family, for saying Trump might have a point. But as far as like performance of the Department of Education and how standardized everything is and how poor the performance has been increasingly in our state of education, I think we need to at least start having conversations
your family
about.
Will never watch this.
Yeah, fair enough.
Should have your mom watch it. She'd watch it probably, but no one else.
But we should have conversations about how we can do education differently because the world is changing very fast and people don't work in factories anymore. We have to find a way to coexist with AI that is going to take even more jobs.
Yep.
Different time. Yeah, maybe we should start considering ourselves civilians again and not consumers, you know? Maybe
we need to change education system for modern audiences.
Yeah, true. Alrighty.
All right,
See
thank you for watching. This has been Civic Engines.
Bye.
We're gone. Bye.